All right, guys. So one of you sent me this video that I just had to react to because it's wild, right? The stuff that this man is saying in this video is absolutely unbelievable, okay? And the title of the video is "Women Are Not Real." And I want to say immediately after this that women are in fact real, okay? Because I don't know, man, if YouTube would classify this type of content as hate speech. So I want to make it very clear to the YouTube moderators. Women are in fact real, okay? And I don't endorse anything this man is saying, even though there may be points in this video in which I may agree with certain things he's saying, but overall I'm not endorsing anything this guy is saying, okay? But yeah, this video, this guy's gonna say some wild stuff about women that, in my opinion, seems to be kind of what happens when you get a little bit too red pill, right? When you go too far right down a certain path in which, you know, you're still thinking about the girlfriend that broke up with you in high school, right? Or the girl that you sent the love letter to and she never responded, right? I'm just saying, this is what happens when you get your heart broken and you aren't fully recovered. You go down this path of just being, you know, super red pill, and this is the type of stuff it leads to. So without further ado, I want to get into this because I have not actually watched the whole thing, because I want to give you guys a raw reaction to what he's saying. So again, I have not watched most of this, right? I've seen some clips and I was like, okay, I'm gonna react to it because it's just wow. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into it.
Women are the physical manifestation of sensory perception. And in the same sense that when your senses are overloaded in any particular way, whether they're overloaded with pleasure or overloaded with pain, if your senses keep receiving that same stimulus over and over, you are not going to have as strong of a reaction to that same stimulus. In this same sense, being that women are the physical manifestations of this phenomenon, that is why women's value must be preserved. They can't be trusted to handle anything of greater responsibility, anything of greater importance than daily household chores and taking care of babies.
Okay, so I have no idea what this guy meant with the whole sensory overload thing, that women are the physical manifestations of that. I honestly don't know what he's talking about, right? But his conclusion here, after all of that, is that, hey, you know, women, their value must be preserved, and that all they can really do is, you know, do household chores and, you know, stuff like that, right? Things that, you know, some people see as traditional roles for women. Now, here's the thing, right? I am conservative. I do believe in gender roles. But I wouldn't go that far, right? I think that somebody's value is not necessarily just inherent to their sex, right? As people can value themselves, right? Not all women necessarily want to be mothers and wives, even though I encourage that, right? I encourage women to want to be mothers and wives. I don't think it's anything more beautiful than being a mother and a wife. But at the same time, I can understand there are women out there that don't necessarily want that. And that is okay, right? I think the problem is that you have a bunch of people out here that are encouraging women and telling them that they can replace men, right? Or that they can do things better than men that they simply can't do because they're not biologically fit to do certain jobs that men do. I think that is what my real issue is. But that doesn't necessarily mean that all women should be in the house making sandwiches and taking care of kids. I don't necessarily believe that, even though, again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? Just like I don't think there's anything wrong with the woman who wants to be a CEO of a company and be an entrepreneur and do some things that men do, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But again, like anything in life, I think there's balance when it comes to this stuff, right? And nuance, okay? Which, by the way, this guy's name is Nuance Nail.
Not taking care of children, taking care of babies. Because once babies turn into children, that's when the psychological development comes into place, which far exceeds the capabilities that women are able to provide for the child. But going back to the value preservation, women's value has to be preserved while a man's value has to be created. Women are born with inherent value, men are born with no value.
Okay, so I get what he's saying here. I think I understand what he's saying. What he's saying is that as a man, societal expectations are for you to provide, right? You're supposed to work, you know, provide, take care of the family. That is your value as a man. A woman, on the other hand, they're not necessarily expected to do that, even though they're capable of doing that, right? They're not necessarily expected to do that. So I kind of understand what he's saying when he says that, you know, a man doesn't have any value at birth, but a woman does, because at the end of the day, they're not expected to have to provide for anything. What they're actually expected to do is ultimately be provided for, and to, like this guy was saying before, take care of babies. And, you know, for whatever reason, he doesn't think that women have the psychological capacity or development to take care of children, which I don't agree with at all. But I'm just saying, I understand what he's saying here, even though I don't think I agree with some of the details.
Or next to no value. They're born with the potential for value. That's why when you see a young woman who hasn't done anything with her life, nobody's going to look down on her if she doesn't want to go to college or if she doesn't want to work. Nobody's going to think less of her for not wanting to do those things. Whereas they definitely will look down on a young man who doesn't want to go to college and doesn't want to work and doesn't want to improve himself.
Yo, low key, that's kind of true. Right? If a woman is not necessarily working her way up the corporate ladder, nobody really says that that woman is a failure, because ultimately, in the day, if they get married and they have kids, people are like, okay, well, that's right, that's fine. But if you're a man and you're not actively trying to work your way up the corporate ladder, or, you know, build your own business, or the advance in life and your career or whatever, people do see you as a failure. I will say he is right about that. Okay? If a woman is a bum, she's fine, because she still has that potential to get married and have kids, right? Nobody's really looking down on her. I mean, unless she's doing things with her body, right? And other things that I think are degrading to women. But outside of that, you know, they work some minimum wage job or something like that. Nobody's really looking at them and saying you're a failure in life, right? But a man, you know, who's working a minimum wage job and barely getting by, they're going to say you're a failure. So I definitely think that there is some truth to what he's saying there.
Since women are born with inherent value, it can't actually be increased in the same way that a man's can. Men's value is based on what they've done and the type of person that they've turned themselves into, what kind of value they've brought into the community in which they're living, or into the larger society. But a woman's value is not based on that. The reason a woman has inherent value is because her value is based on her fertility. To put it bluntly, that's what it's based on. Women's value is based on their fertility. That's why it's in the best interest of a woman not to waste her inherent value and try to lock down a high value man, or a man who looks like he's on his way to becoming high value, as soon as she can. The more experiences a woman goes through, the less value she has as a woman. And it's not just fertility either. It's also based on her ability to stay with a mate. Children are more likely to survive if the father's in the home. Children grow up much healthier and much happier and are much more successful later in life when the father is present. And not just...
I mean, I can't really disagree with that. Now, the part about, you know, women and their inherent value coming in from their fertility, it depends on the way you see it, right? Some men may see it that way, especially if you're a man where you can provide for you and, you know, your wife or whatever, and you don't need any help. You don't need her to necessarily have an income, anything like that. I can see that. But on the other hand, there are situations in which you do need two incomes. And I think at that point, you know, women do have more value outside of just their ability to, you know, be fertile or to have kids or whatever, right? I mean, women can provide for their families. They can help their communities. They can, you know, help improve other people's lives and, you know, do things that are constructive, right? They can be positive contributors to society outside of just having kids. But let's be honest here. Let's not underplay the value that comes from being able to have kids, because the older that a woman gets, she definitely becomes less desirable, right? Women start to get up in their mid-30s, their 40s, and they're not married. They ain't had no kids yet. You know, it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. Okay, it's going to be tough because you're not that fertile anymore. You know, women have a biological clock. Now, men don't have a biological clock, okay, but men do have a financial clock. And men are expected to at least, you know, peak financially in their mid-30s to their early 40s, in which at that point, you know, a man could be very, very, very desirable, right? Especially as a single guy, you know, making a whole lot of money at that age. You know, but again, a woman at that age because, there's a biological aspect to what she brings to the table in regards to having kids and fertility. Value definitely erodes if, she can't do that.
Present but consciously involved in the children's lives. That's why stepfathers don't really do the trick. You can't just inject a male person into a child's life and say, this is your new father now. That's not how psychology works. That's not how human brains work. The child knows it's not their actual father. And before any idiots go, well, I formed a bond with my stepfather, I'm aware that exceptions exist. I would still argue that you're not as close to your stepfather as you would have been to your biological father had you had the chance. But like I said, the more experiences, whether positive or negative, that a woman goes through decreases her value because women cannot handle the stresses or the pleasures of life. The more stress she goes through, the more she sees the world as nothing more than a negative place. And I've mentioned this in a previous video, but it's because women are not able to connect with God in the same way that men are. Women are not able to renew themselves mentally. They see everything on earth through the lens of the material. They see everything on earth through the lens of sensory perception. If something doesn't excite them enough, then it's not a good thing.
Bruh.
If something stresses them out too much, then it's also not a good thing. Everything has to be new, everything has to be fresh, everything has to be exciting all the time, 100% of the time, otherwise it's bad.
All right, let me go back to the whole women can't connect with God the same way men can. I'm just gonna say this. I'm gonna say this, right? And I'm gonna leave it at this, right? I'm not saying I agree with what he's saying, but there are definitely some religions out there, right? Or people that tend to be a lot more conservative in terms of how they practice their religion that probably would agree with that, right? Like, for example, in Islam, women can be scholars and preachers, but they can't preach to a man, right? They can't preach to a man, right? And also there's passages in the Bible that seem to suggest that, women should remain silent in church, right? That they can't be preachers, okay? Now, again, there's some debate about, whether or not, that's actually true or whatever, but I'm just saying, from a certain religious perspective, I mean, he may be on to something here. Again, I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying I can understand where he's coming from. Just observing some of the religious texts in certain books in regards to what they say about women and their role, particularly in the church or the religious institution. That's all I'm saying.
That's how women see the world. They don't have an accurate lens of reality through which they see the world. They just don't see reality. They interpret the quality of reality through the type of sensory input they're receiving. That's why girls don't work out. You ever wonder why the vast majority...
Okay, come on, bro. Come on, dude. Women work out all the time, bro. I see a ton of women in the gym, okay? Women do work out. I encourage women to work out. I love women that work out, right? Okay, you're getting a little bit too far gone here, my guy. Too far gone.
Majority of women don't work out. They are fortunate enough to be born with a nice looking body, and then it just wastes away. They don't work out. They could preserve their body a little bit by working out, but that's why. It's because it hurts. Working out hurts. And since women only interpret the world through sensory perception, anything that hurts is a bad thing. They can't handle it. They literally can't handle working out.
I don't know about that, bro. I don't know about that. Now, do most women work out? Probably not. But, I think some women do some form of exercise. Are they in there, pumping iron? Trying to be bodybuilders or weightlifters and stuff? Not really, but I think a lot of women do some cardio. They walk, they do this, they do that,
How strongly this influences their mind. And just as when I was saying earlier, when a woman goes through too many negative experiences, she's not able to renew herself because women are not as connected to God. They're not able to refresh themselves psychologically. They're not able to detach themselves from the material world. And don't let their astrology fool you either. All this crystals, all the chakra, the healing bullshit, there's no such thing as chakras, there's no such thing as crystals, lighting incense. All of that is still sensory. There's no divine presence there. It's still, just because it makes them feel good doesn't mean that there's a divine presence there. They might feel a tiny bit of divine presence because typically when they interact with these things, they're becoming more still in body, and that's how you gain greater contact with God. That's how you connect yourself better with the divine presence. But since they're not able to go all the way, they're satisfied with sensory perception. They think that the crystals are the divine presence. They think that the incense or the astrological signs are the divine presence, when really it's just more sensory perception. It's just more material, surface level interpretation.
Is this dude saying that women are into astrology because they can't connect with God? Is that the argument that this guy is making? I think that's what he's saying.
But in the same sense that negative experiences traumatized them in a way that cannot be...
But also on top of that, women tend to be a lot more religious. And I think that's true across most religions and cultures in the world, that women tend to be more religious than their male counterparts.
Recovered from, so do pleasure experiences. If a woman has the best sex of her life with a guy, she will never be able to enjoy another man again. It has to stay at that high level. You ever wonder why divorce courts favor women? It's because the objective is to maintain the woman's lifestyle. No attention is given to the man's lifestyle. Nobody gives a single fuck about men, okay? Just for you guys thinking you're gonna change the divorce courts, men need to be given more rights. Men need to be prioritized in court. None of that shit's ever gonna happen. That's never, ever. I can't even emphasize how that's never going to happen.
Well, I ain't gonna lie to you. Some of that is a part of the whole culture of men are supposed to be the providers, and women aren't necessarily expected to provide for themselves. And I think that that's where the disparity comes in when it comes to the judicial system in regards to, child custody laws, child support, stuff like that. A lot of that stuff is kind of cultural, right? But I think the problem is that we're living in a society in which, feminists are supposed to be saying that men and women are equal. However, they're not necessarily fighting for equality when it comes to situations where men get screwed over. Okay, I think that's why a lot of people complain about that stuff. But, we do have this system in place because of the traditional role of men, which is to provide. And that's why the court system is so lopsided, because that does come from a conservative culture and a more traditional gender role ideology.
It's just not. But back to what I was saying. The woman's lifestyle is to be maintained. That's the priority. Now, the positive implications of this prioritization would be that if the woman has a small child and the dad's a deadbeat, then yeah, we would want to make sure that they're financially set up. But in the vast majority of divorce cases, and just cases dealing with men and women in general, none of those details are taken into consideration. It is only taken into consideration that she is a woman, and due to our feminist culture, she's inherently a victim, and he is a man, which means he's inherently a perpetrator, and he's inherently a bad guy. And so the rewards, the fruits of the man's labor are given to the woman, regardless of the context of the situation. But jumping back to what I was saying, even pleasurable experiences are too much for the woman to handle because they cannot refresh themselves. They can't see men in a new light. They can't appreciate different aspects of the man. All they see is whoever gives them the most dick, whoever gives them the most exciting experience.
Oh my!
Whoever takes her on the most expensive date, on the more expensive date, he's the one who's gonna take the cake. She will forever look at every other date after that with a sense of pity. You ever notice how girls who've been ran through, or just more attractive girls, tend to look at men with a sense of resentment or a sense of pity? Or they look at nice guys definitely with a sense of pity as well. It's almost like, oh, it's so cute. Look at him trying so hard. He thinks this is actually impressing me. Look at him trying so hard to impress me. Why is he trying? It's almost like they're confused. They're like, why is he trying so hard to impress me? What have I done to deserve such effort? None of the other guys have ever put in this much effort before. They're
low-key, that could be true. Like, low-key, there are definitely some women that think like that will take advantage of nice dudes, okay? Nice dudes come around, do the world for them, try to save a garden tool, and garden tools will take advantage of it. That is definitely true. Because most garden tools are garden tools because they like being treated like garden tools, and they respond to guys that treat them like garden tools. And when you come around and you try to treat a garden tool like she's not a garden tool, then that triggers a reaction of, why the hell are you doing this? And they will take advantage of that stuff.
Confused as to why you would try so hard for them. Even they are not confused about the amount of value they provide. Even they understand that they are ruined. Even they understand that their value has gone out the window. It went out the window with the first 100 guys they slept with. And I do mean 100. You guys don't realize how utterly abundant women's sex options are. Most women's sex options from even for average girls are through the roof. And it's because
low key, he's right. He's right. And I don't know what reasons he's gonna cite here, but with the advent of, you know, Tinder, social media, like, it has really made average women think that they are a whole lot better than they actually are. It really has, because, you know, again, it's just so easy for them, right? It's very easy for them. Okay, that's just what it is.
Because of the dynamic. Men are the ones who are supposed to approach the women. Therefore, women are naturally going to have more options. It just makes it seem like that. That's why women's egos are through the roof. That's why the moment they don't get this attention, they go fucking nuts. Because it's been that way their entire lives. That's why women can't acknowledge that they do have it easier in life. That's why women can't acknowledge the privileges they have in life, because it's been a part of their life their entire lives. But don't be fooled. Even they understand that their value is gone. That's why they don't like guys treating them with appreciation. That's why they don't like guys treasuring them. Because they know they're not treasures. They know they're not worthy of that treatment. But they're in such denial. Women are masters of self-denial. Or rather, not self-denial, but they're masters of going into denial. They don't deny themselves anything. They'll take anything they can get. Women say men will fuck anything, and then be the anything that gets fucked. It's so funny, because for all the resentment towards men that ran through women have, they sure do seem to have sex with them all the time. They'll still take anything they can get. They don't. It's not like they turn down men's advances. It's not like they just turn away sex altogether. They don't become abstinent. They'll still take anything they can get, while at the same time pretending that they're not that type of person. They're just as degenerative as the degenerative men. Don't let the fact that men are the ones approaching women confuse you. Women are just able to hide it because of the natural dynamic. Nobody can see this underlying dynamic. It's like so obvious. It's observable in our everyday life, and yet nobody can see this. Nobody can take their awareness just an inch deeper and see, yeah, you know what? Men are the ones approaching women. Women are the ones getting approached. So naturally, it would make sense that women have more abundant options, and they're able to hide things easily, and they're able to make it seem like they don't want it as bad, and they're able to make it seem like they're just victims and really the men are the perpetrators. Things are much more nuanced and complex than the vast majority of people will ever realize, much less admit to. But I don't want to ramble on for too long. I think I've spoken on this long enough. Smash that like button if you enjoyed. Leave a comment down below.
Oh my God, that video was crazy, man. Yeah, that is like the last form of red pill, right? That is the ultimate form of red pill. Yeah, you know, hey, do I agree with everything he said? No, but I do think that there's some points in this video. I'm like, yeah, you got a point, man. You got a point. Okay, you got a point. So let me know what you guys thought about that. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.